I love trying new to me art and craft styles, and while I am often up for diving in at home and experimenting with very little instruction, sometimes it's a little better, or like straight up necessary, to have guidance, a studio space, supplies provided for you, aka a class. Last spring, I utilized my job as a YouTuber to force myself to leave the house, be around other human beings, and take some art and craft classes, and y'all, it was a delight. I got to try mosaic and stained glass and rug tufting and assemblage, and every single time I almost chickened out of actually going, but every single time I was so glad that I committed and actually went. And I've been wanting to do that again. A lot of you said, hey, you should do that again. Because not only is it fun for me, but also I think it's great to see what styles of creating are out there that maybe you've never even thought of, and what it's like to take an actual class in some of those styles. Hopefully, this is encouragement for you to try something new and weird and creative. Emphasis on the weird part, with all the appreciation for how wonderful weird can be, because this time I specifically looked for the most out-of-the-box classes. Yes, you can usually find painting and sewing and sculpture classes, but what else? What kind of amazing stuff are people making and teaching others to make? I have booked 4 classes over the course of the next month, so let's dive into the weird and wonderful world of art, craft, and creativity, starting with the first course happening today, neon art. Neon is not something I would have ever thought to look up specifically, but luckily the Museum of Neon Art and their workshops showed up a few times under my general craft classes in LA searches. The museum and classroom studio is located right across the street from a bougie mall in Glendale, which I found helpful because I've been there many times and I'm familiar with its layout and parking garage. We do love to feel prepared. I went a little early and got myself a snack. There were 5 of us taking the class, and the teacher started with some introductions, general information about the neon making process, and then of course, safety notices. I do really appreciate classes like this though. This art form involves open flames, molten glass, sharp edges, cutting tools, etc. But there are no kids, and we all signed waivers and paid attention to the safety information, and then it's like, hey, you might get burned or cut, because sometimes we forget that an edge is sharp or a piece of glass is hot, and if so, first aid kit. Anyway, no burns or cuts for me, yay! Once the teacher had shown us several different types of glass bend and done one assisted glass bend with us, we were pretty much free to just go for it and play around. They gave us 4 4-foot tubes of glass and access to a bunch of shorter scrap pieces if we wanted them, with the goal being that by the time you got to your final 1 or 2 tubes, you'd be working on the project you wanted to actually have filled with gas and turned into a neon art piece. We used what they called ribbon burners, which have this long strip of flame that you can adjust to the length of glass you're trying to bend. You rotate the tube over the flame until you feel and see that it's just the right amount of melty, and then working with gravity as much as possible, you quickly create your bend, puffing through the blow hose to keep the tube inflated to the same width all the way through the bend. If the glass caves in on itself or creates a fold or anything, that area will be a weak spot that might break, especially when shoving a bunch of neon in there. I immediately loved this process. It's very intuitive. I think that's the right word. You have to move fast and know what you want and how to get what you want if you're trying to make something specific. But since I was just experimenting, I'd kind of just let whatever happened in the moment happen. They showed us how to do curlicues or twists or spirals, and that immediately became my top interest. So I started working my way down a piece of glass, putting in as many twists and turns as possible. We took a break for lunch, during which I was able to walk through the actual museum portion. They have so much cool stuff in there, from art pieces to decommissioned neon signs to plasma stuff. Very awesome to see. Highly recommend checking it out if you're ever in LA. Then we were back at the bending, and I ended up with all 4 of my glass tubes turned into something I'd be happy to process, aka put gas inside. After much debate, I chose one and decided to put neon inside. The other option is argon, or neon or argon with a touch of mercury in it, all of which give you different colors. Since mine was the first piece done, the teacher talked through the whole process of bombarding the piece with electricity to clean out any impurities inside that would mess with the gas, and then filling it with the neon. They then let the neon age on high voltage because apparently it shows up as pink at first before changing into its final orange. With my actual neon piece finished, I spent the rest of the class futzing around and playing with my remaining 3 pieces and a lot more scraps. The teacher's assistant showed me how to use the crossfire, which is better for getting tight turns in the glass. I got some very tight turns, which caved in on themselves and ended up cracking, but it was great practice. Eventually, I just started welding all of my practice pieces together for the fun of it. Y'all, this was such a fun class. I'm so glad that I tried this. I was definitely the most enthralled with the glass bending portion of it, which is the majority of the class. Like, you learn how to bend the glass, they put the neon in it and all of that stuff. That was a really cool, like, thing to see. It was great to, like, see her walk through the whole process, but I will say that that's where my brain started being like, meh, okay. I'm so not like a sciencey person or electricity kind of person. At that point, I was like, oh, Matt should have come. He would have loved this part. And there was one of the students specifically was like a chemist, and he was very fascinated in that part and asking lots of questions. And I was like, I just want to go bend more glass, which is making me think that I should take a glass blowing class. Maybe the next time we do this, there will not be a glass blowing class in this round. So like the final product of the class itself, other than like learning and fun, is to have this one neon piece. One piece that they actually do the bombarding and the filling with the gas and the plugging off the ends, all of that stuff. They did say that if you had more than one piece that you wanted, you could pay a little bit of extra and they would do that. You would just have to come pick it up later because finishing each one took like a chunk of time. So they just wanted to make sure they could finish everybody's pieces. This is the one that I chose. I know all of this is probably hard to see because it's glass, but then they were like, all of the glass pieces you were working on, you can take any of that home, anything that you want, just plain and as glass. So I took 2 pieces home. This was actually a scrap. Lots of crazy bends I put in it, and I thought it ended up looking like a really artistic hashtag. I just loved the way that it looked, and then I had some fun experimenting and kind of melted down the end so it just has this one tiny hole in it. I'm thinking, and I'll show you this later in the video if I end up doing it, I want to get like a nice little wooden block, drill a hole that's exactly this size in it, and glue this in nice and watertight. And then I could use a syringe to fill this whole thing with water and use it as like a crazy bud vase, just like for one very thin stem to go in the end. I don't know, I just think this is such a fun art piece on itself. Or I could even fill it with colored water and like that's it, that's the art piece on its own. A lot of my glass I did leave there because I did a lot of experimenting, but this was the one I absolutely loved. This is the one that I said I started at one end and just was doing twist after twist after twist. The teacher's assistant was like, I think this is your style, more than like, you know, angles or doing words or something. And I was like, yeah, this is so cool to me. I just kept futzing with it. I got twists kind of all the way through and then went back in like any place where it was a little bit straight. I tried to add another bend in there, and I love the look of it. I'm also loving the shadow of it on the table. So this is just gonna be a glass art piece. This is the actual neon piece. I decided that like, there's not really any place in the current house where like neon really makes sense, but Matt is currently working on creating his sound studio in the garage, and I was like, a little neon piece in your sound studio. Seems like it would work. That would make sense, which is why I chose neon, because it is orange, which I think will go kind of with his color scheme. Argon, by the way, is like this beautiful light lavender, which is what I was considering putting through this piece before I decided on the other one. So let me plug this in and show you. That's very bright on camera. It's very bright in real life too. But look how freaking cool, I've made that. Yay. So that was class number 1, pretty freaking cool already. I had a blast. Before we move on though, I have to show you, since we're talking creativity, art, and crafts. Gal mug! Yo, I went to, it's called Market for Makers, I think. They do markets all over the place with like local small artists. This, I believe her shop name is Unique Clay, and she had so many just frickin' adorable mugs and planters and stuff. Couldn't resist the cow. It's so cute. Now I have a cow mug to go with my chicken. I should start a whole mug farm. A pig would be really cute. But on to class number 2. Not right now, it's in like a week, which is broom making. Broom making may not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think crafting styles, but it's actually been on my wanna try it list for ages, so I was quite excited to see the class Nova Community Arts is offering. I've been here once before for a charity drive they were holding after the LA fires. Nice to return for a class this time. There was such a lovely group of people attending this class, very chill and relaxed vibes, and we're pretty much just using broom corn and waxed cord to make these little whisk brooms. You wrap the cord on a dowel and then put it under your feet so you can get extreme tension while wrapping the handle of the broom in whatever manner you prefer. Despite me having no upper body strength, I have learned to use my full body leverage to my advantage at various jobs over the years, and I wasn't filming at the time, but I full on snapped this cord, y'all. Surprise, I'm actually the Hulk. Once the handle was fully wrapped and secured, we put the broom end between these 2 dowels to spread it out, and then you basically do some stitching around it for both visual appeal and to keep it spread out. Everyone was saying it reminded them of bookbinding stitches, but for me it was like embroidery on a broom. The teacher provided little charms for us to add, which was such a fun touch, and she also gifted us these teeny tiny brooms she'd made herself. I feel like I need to make a teeny tiny something to go with this broom now. It's so cute, and it already has puppy fur on it. But here is my finished broom. Da-da! Little whisk broom for cleaning up your surfaces, which actually might be helpful because I've been making some messes lately. I could really get stuff off this table here. This was such a fun class. I love how sort of simple broom making is overall, but then you can get like a lot more complicated and creative with it. This is definitely making me even more so want to make an actual full-sized broom. And this was a great beginning practice for that. I feel like I have the basics down. I'm pretty good to go if I wanted to make another one. And that was very much what the teacher encouraged. I liked that all through the class. She was like, so if you're doing this at home, you don't need this supply, you can really just do it simply with this, you could do this instead. Like, she was giving lots of options for how you can continue this craft style later on instead of it just being like, this is a one-off. I think that happens a lot when you're in love with a craft style and then you go to teach it to other people. You're like, well, you're gonna fall in love with it too, so here's how you can keep doing it, because like, I fell in love with it, why wouldn't everyone else? And fair, this was really fun. Also, y'all, the puppy frickin' loves this. To him, it is stick. I did take it away from him before he was able to start chewing on it, but we had a lot of fun last night, running around the house with him just holding it delicately in his mouth. Is it yours? Where we go? Are you running away? Is that your stick? Munch.
delicious.
So there is a final touch that I need to do on this. You don't have to. You can leave this long right here, but you can also trim it off, which I would like to do. We just didn't do it in class because it involves very sharp blades, and they didn't want to be held liable, which is fair. She told us how to do it with an X-Acto knife. I kind of want to just jigsaw through it. This is maybe a bad idea, but also it's maybe a perfectly fine idea. So, please hold. I'm not gonna show you this so that nobody can yell at me if it seems unsafe. It was unsafe. Blade version recommended. I mean, look, she didn't say to not use a jigsaw, but I'm gonna say it. Don't use a jigsaw. She kind of said not to saw with it, but my blade is not very sharp, so we're working with what we got. We're almost there. Haha! Now I can use the broom to clean up the mess I made with the broom. Ooh, it works so well. So that was broom making class. Next up, we're revisiting glass, but in a different way. Glass fusion. Though I've definitely seen glass fusion pieces before, I didn't know that's what it is, or that's what it's called, until I took the stained glass workshop last spring. They also offered glass fusion classes at that location, so we talked about it a bit, although they offer them less frequently, so this time I found a place called Fire Glass Studio and signed up for a class to make a coral bowl. There ended up being a little scheduling mix-up though, with the wrong class theme being put on the website during this time slot. But the teacher was so wonderful about it, and it kinda worked out in my favor. She had me come in half an hour early and walked me through the coral bowl process by myself, then set me up on my own little table while she went on to teach a holiday ornaments class across from me. And yeah, I really enjoyed being off by myself, doing my own thing, says the hermit crafter who usually sits alone at home doing her own thing. Is anyone surprised? Anyway though, the process is pretty simple and it looks like you can do so many different things with the overall technique. For the coral bowl, I cut glass pieces into short strips and arranged them from the center outward within a circle outline. Fusion is fascinating because you take all these sharp-edged rectangles of glass and stack them on top of each other all haphazardly, and yet once it goes in the kiln, all of this melts down to one flat and smooth piece of glass. So freaking cool. I debated over colors quite a bit and then decided on a green to yellow gradient. You glue all the pieces together as you go just so that they won't shift around while being put in the kiln and stuff, but yeah, it's really quite a fun, creative, and not at all difficult process. There were several fairly young children in the class across from me, and they seemed to be having a blast. Once I was happy with my design, that was basically it. The teacher will fire it in the kiln sometime in the coming week, and I can head home and come back to pick it up later. So it is now a week later, because I of course wanted to wait until I had my piece to do the little follow-up here. Ooh! Oh, I'm really happy with my color choice. I'm always so tempted to do things either blue or purple. So I'm glad I went with something different. There she is. I do love green and yellow together. It's always so bright and cheery in my mind. That's so cool. It reminds me of a frog, actually. The little ends here remind me of like a rainforest frog's toe pads. I mean, what a gorgeous art piece. There's definitely so much you can do with glass fusion, just the pieces that they had at the studio. Like, so varied. But of course it is an art form that requires a kiln, so it's not quite as, shall we say, approachable at home. It's the kind of thing that is really good to go take a class in, and this felt similar to taking like a pottery class or doing like a paint and sip kind of thing, I would definitely recommend a class like this as like an activity for you and a friend, or you and your partner, or even like the whole family, because kids were able to do this. An activity for a group of gals going out or something. Like, this is a great one that doesn't take too long, but involves a lot of creativity and isn't that hard, so like pretty much everyone can do it. Yeah, if you've already exhausted, you know, your normal going out to do an activity options, look around where you are and see if glass fusion is anywhere, if anybody has a studio for that, because it's really fun. And I mean, the piece you get from it, it's like, that wasn't that hard to make. I mean, let's be real, it didn't require that much skill. It was all about just being creative and putting colors together and just, you know, kind of following the design that I was told to follow. And in the end, you get something that looks so freaking cool. I'm really pleased with that. That was fun. Oh, and speaking of glass, before we move on, I completed my little art piece with the one from the neon class, my little hashtag thing. We just pulled this board out of my stash of wood that I now have, and I stained it all nicely, and then we drilled a hole into it just the right size for the tube. And I tried putting it in there with hot glue, and it was not water secure. Watertight. It was not watertight. So we did it with epoxy instead. But y'all, filling this with water was like a thing in itself. It was like doing a puzzle of some kind. I feel like there's something where you're like moving something around to get something in a specific spot. I'm blanking on what these are, but it's kind of a type of puzzle. And that's the thing, is when you put water in this end, I used a syringe to put the dyed water in here. You have to get the air bubbles out. And you have to do that by following the whole route of this. So it was all this like twisty turny, like I had to get into this rhythm to get like one air bubble out at a time, and then put in a little more water and get out another air bubble. And I was like, this is a weirdly satisfying activity to fill it up with water. And then once it's full, you have a cool little art piece. So I'm now really tempted to go back to the neon place for one of their like open studios and stuff. Forget the neon, I just wanna do the glass bending. Make cool shapes like this, and then you mount all of them. Like each one is its own little art piece, but then like part of the art is that you get it empty with a syringe, and you have to do the little puzzle of filling it up with water. Yeah? Is that super weird or super cool? I don't think I'm gonna just suddenly switch to being a glass puzzle art piece maker, but I'm tempted. That is that. I have one more class for this little month of classes here. Sculptural basket weaving. This one's a little different because it's a 2-day workshop, and I'll be honest, it was the first one in this set of classes that I was a little less excited to attend. Really just because I realized a couple days before that it's downtown in the fashion district, which is not my favorite place to drive. It stresses me out. The actual workshop quickly made me very glad that I forced myself out the door though, because basket weaving is so much fun. We started by soaking the round rattan we'll be using. Rattan? Rattan? Pardon me if you don't like my pronunciation. I'm gonna stick with rattan. We started by soaking it so it gets super pliable, and then the teacher showed us how to do twining, the sort of most common or basic weaving method, where you create a little hashtag of spokes and then wrap weavers around it, twisting them between each spoke as you go. Because this is a sculptural basket weaving class, it was all about getting creative and making cool shapes and being loose and free-flowing with your weaving style. So of course I immediately did a super tightly woven round basket, because creativity doesn't actually come to me in that style super often. I got the flow of the movement down pretty quickly though, and was super enjoying the repetition of twining. Y'all know I love a slow, repetitious task. After I had gotten a little round basket shape, I decided to force it outward like the brim of a hat for a while, but then that felt like it wanted to come back inward eventually, so I ended up with this fun blobular vase sort of thing. When I was ready to finish it off, I wove my spokes back through the basket and cut off the excess. And that's one basket already done. We were already moving on to the second technique of this workshop though, random weaving. For this, you create a sort of anchor with the round rattan wrapped around a balloon base, and then we use the flat rattan strips to weave around in whatever manner we wanted, just doing a lot of unders and overs to create tension points all over the place. I did enjoy this style. It was fun to make the various textures and try to fill in the holes so that the whole piece would be sturdy enough. But anything that's random or free-flowing in nature actually requires way more focus for me. The way my brain works, I have to think hard to achieve something unstructured. I was talking to one of the other students afterward and she said the same. We both vibed a little better with the twining, even though the random style was really fun to try. Once I felt like it was structurally sound, I popped the balloon and had this cool woven spear, which incidentally fits perfectly inside my blobby vase. It's like I planned it. I totally didn't. Before we left for the day, I started a third piece, trying to be a little looser with my twining, but I only got this far, so I will pick that up on day 2 of the workshop. And pick it up I did. It's now day 2, really putting a lot of effort into making this one not a hat or a bowl shape. Seriously, that's tough for me. But I achieved it and ended up with this open weave blobby organic shape. Yay! Today, the teacher also showed us how to cover the woven structures with paper, which I ended up doing a bit on the lower half of this piece. She showed us how to use both gut and cement on our pieces as well, which was really cool to learn, but I definitely gravitate towards the plain wooden style, though the paper was giving me some great ideas for lampshades or lanterns. That's going on the to-do list for sometime soon-ish. I spent the rest of the class just trying stuff and making more pieces, even incorporating some embroidery hoops that I had brought from home. We were free to use as much of the rattan as we wanted, so the only limit was time, and y'all, basket weaving is pretty dang fast. I made a lot of stuff. I mean, 5 pieces from one workshop. That's pretty impressive. Those 5 hours went by so fast though, both days. I barely even paused either day either. Like, I think I briefly snacked on something, but like didn't pause for a meal, didn't pause for a bathroom break. I was in it. Cause y'all, yeah, basket weaving is super cool and apparently I love it. I'm really glad that I did this class specifically though, because I feel like I got all of the basic information for basket weaving itself, while also getting the more interesting sort of creative side of sculptural basket weaving, like how to do the random weave, how to do the paper and the gut and the cement and everything, and how to just like make forms, how to kind of force things to go where you want them to go or let them go where they want to go and just go along with it, yeah? The teacher was really thorough. She gave us information on where to find supplies, both online and locally, so that, you know, if we want to keep doing it on our own, we can. Guess what? I super duper want to keep doing it on my own. I already have at least 2, if not more, like specific projects on my to-do list now that fall in the realm of basket weaving. So you'll probably be seeing that sometime in the future on this channel. But yeah, she also showed us like artists that do sculptural basket weaving of different kinds so that we could see like what you can do with this style. She showed us how she weaves over a water bottle, which was really cool because it looks fully enclosed in the end, and it's like, how did you get the water bottle out? And it was a whole trick. And one of the students, when she went home on the first day, started weaving a piece with filament for a 3D printer. She said that she had some that had come off of the spool and then like you basically can't use it anymore. So she just started using it to weave with. And everyone was like, oh, you painted your rattan. And she was like, no, it's filament. So I kind of want to try that. She said it was really slippery and a little more difficult, but it looked really good. But yeah, for a quick tour through my 5 pieces, I started with my little twined basket sort of thing. Does it hat? You bet it hats. Someone else made this gorgeous like big sun hat looking one. She didn't even really mean to, but it ended up looking like a stunning sun hat and it fit her perfectly. So hat making, make that project number 3 that I want to do soon. And then yeah, the sphere going in here was just so fun. I did not at all intend for this to happen, but now it feels like it's a connected little art piece. And this was my next piece that I did with the paper over it. You layer on all of the paper in these smaller pieces. I don't think I got good footage of me doing that, but you basically just tear up paper and use like a Mod Podge kind of thing to brush it on. And then all of your like connection points kind of just disappear when it dries. It makes it look like it's solid paper. So paper lanterns, we were talking about like watercoloring over this or using like different colors of tissue paper to make like a mottled gradient look and stuff. That would be awesome. And I like that this one, I managed to put a little handle on. This was the piece that I did with my embroidery hoops. And yeah, it ended up looking like a bottle. It was a fun concept. I brought the hoops because she was like, hey, if you have anything you want to bring from home that you could potentially weave with, then do so. And I was like, oh, I'm sure I could weave like around the embroidery hoops. But I ended up actually sandwiching the rattan inside and then just tightening the hoop really tightly. So it's tensioning it all in there. And yeah, I love how this one turned out. This is very sort of me because it's very like structural and very specific and repetitive and stuff. It's not really the organic forms that a lot of people were doing, but like, let's be real. This is more my creative style, is very structural. And then I also just made a basket really quickly at the very end, or like a little bowl, because I was considering using the cement, but I finished this literally like as the workshop was ending. So I just have a cute little bowl now. That's all for my month of weird and amazing craft classes though. I'm always so happy that I make myself do these videos. I definitely want to like make it a recurring thing, maybe at least once a year, because there are still so many other art and craft styles that I could try, and I'm really lucky to be in a place where there are so many studios, there's so many artists, there's so many people offering classes and teaching their incredible skills. Highly recommend doing a good old Google search, craft classes in my area, art classes in my area, or if there's a specific thing you're thinking of, then just search that thing specifically. Like there's some craft types that I've been looking up specifically and I haven't found a class near me yet, but you never know when somebody will suddenly host a workshop or something and you'll get the results that you were hoping for. As always though, I just highly recommend trying something new, being creative. These are great group activities. They're great single activities because you meet people there and you get to have nice chats with them. You create new skills and you get to bring home an incredible art piece. I mean, every single class I brought home at least one, if not a lot more, cool art pieces that I made that I can now have in my home. So this has been fun. Thanks for giving me an excuse to do it. Last spring, I was definitely the most enthralled. Why is this table sticky? Ew. One piece that they actually go through the whole process of bombarding? Yo. Why do I have the worst farts on the days that I'm leaving the house?